So I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. My name is Mike McAllister. I'm the Director of Human Capital, sort of facilitating and kind of coordinating this process. This is actually the third part of our process. The first part started out with the screening team. Second part was with an interview with the superintendent. And the third one is both a parent interview as well as a staff interview this afternoon that they had. And then after here, Michael's going over to meet with other leadership council. And we're collecting data from all that. So the superintendent who's here tonight, Jill, thank you for being here. She is here to really just to watch the process, but she's also, everything that you write on these pages, we're going to take and we're going to compile for her to look through. So every comment you make, every piece of information you give, we'll review it. And so I say that both to reassure you, but also to ask you to take it seriously because it will all get your attention, her attention. So the format of tonight is really open Q&A. There's 45 minutes. I'm going to ask Michael, the first candidate, to just say a few things at the beginning, a quick introduction, fire any questions you have at him. We do have a microphone because cable is picking it up for us, so I will sort of facilitate. Following this, I will walk him over to the other interview. So it is my pleasure to introduce Michael McGean. Mike currently is serving as the Chief Academic Officer at City on a Hill Charter School in Boston, Massachusetts. He's worked in this role since last year. Prior to that, he worked as the Director of Teacher Development and Compliance at City on a Hill. His classroom teaching experience as a math teacher includes 3 years in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Public Schools and 3 years at City on a Hill. Mike completed his principal internship at McDevitt Middle School in Waltham, Massachusetts. His education and training includes a BA in economics from Middlebury College in Middlebury, Vermont, a graduate certificate in teaching from the University of North Carolina, and a master's of education from the Harvard Graduate School of Education in Cambridge as part of their school leadership program. Chenery is fortunate to have found such a motivated and well-qualified teacher in Michael to be one of the finalists for our Q Principalship. So I'm going to ask when you have a question. I'll let Michael speak. When you have a question, I will bring the microphone over to you. I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself and what age your children are, just so he has a sense of, are they 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, or somewhere in between. So Michael, I'll give you a couple minutes just to welcome. You can change the height of the microphone if you want.
It's all good.
Keep it
We'll
low,
do that
so.
to you. Hey, y'all. Good evening. So Mike kind of gave y'all the resume about me, so I'll just share a few words about just me personally and who I am. So I am the proud son of 2 parents who are both Lincoln Town employees. I'm a graduate of Lincoln Public Schools. When I was at Middlebury College working on my undergrad in economics, I had a whole life plan worked out. I was going to go into finance. It was going to be great. And then when I retired, I was going to be a teacher. And my senior year, I had a crisis of conscience. I knew that just wasn't what I was meant to do. So I applied for Teach for America my senior year. The day after I graduated Middlebury, I drove my car from Middlebury College, Vermont, all the way down to North Carolina. And I started my teaching career there. I met my wife on the second day there, and I have never looked back since. And so Mike kind of gave you the resume piece of me and sort of what I've been doing since I've graduated. But I'm excited to be here and excited to answer questions that y'all have.
So I will take the first question, just to model it all for you. So the first question actually came from our art and music teachers. And so the question is, Michael, what role do you see music and the arts playing in the overall experience for students at Chenery and in their transition and growth through grades 4 through 6?
Yeah, absolutely. So music and arts, to me, crucial part of the upper elementary experience. I got to tell a quick funny story. So when I was at the Lincoln School, I had just started in the 6th grade, and my parents said, you know, you really need to start with an instrument. You really need to pick something up. And so we asked the band teacher, we said, hey, you know, what do you need? You know, what is there? And she said, oh, well, we need a tuba player. And so all throughout 6th through 8, I was the tuba player, but I was just as skinny, but much, much smaller. And I was so small in middle school that I had to have my mom help me carry my tuba in on wheels into school every day. So that was my middle school experience. But I share the tuba story just to say that even that traumatic experience was, I think, really important. I think learning an instrument is really powerful for kids. It was a great community. I mean, all of my friends kind of sat in the back row with me for our band concerts. And so to me, it really feels like an indispensable part of the upper elementary experience.
Thank you. Some of the questions. And again, just introduce yourself and your the age of your children.
Hello, I'm Caroline Beasley, and my daughter is currently in 4th grade. So I was curious to hear you talk about what do you think are the particular needs of the age group of the age group of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. What are their particular needs? How do you think an upper elementary school can best meet those needs as distinguished from another kind of middle school model? And then here's the second part. How do you currently see Chenery meeting those needs, and where do you think there are areas of growth in meeting those needs?
Sure. All right, great question. So I'll start with the first piece about the needs of this age group. So I've spent a lot of time working with this age group and coaching this age group as a swim coach for many, many years. What I have seen, particularly what happens right around 4th grade, is students really start to get a better understanding of what their identity is. They become much more focused on peer relationships. And so anybody that has 4th graders or has taught them or has coached them knows that you're spending a lot of time helping them navigate those new friendships and new relationships that they're very eager to form. They still love all of the adults in their life, but they are becoming sort of that more peer-focused age. And so to me, an understanding of sort of what the needs of kids are that age is kind of a crucial part of working with this age group. The other thing that I see really with 4th and 5th graders is they're starting to make their own independent decisions, and they need a lot of adult coaching and support in order to make those good independent decisions. In terms of the second part of your question, I'm not from Belmont, I'm not from Chenery, so I'll tell you what I've heard. As you probably heard, I've done a bunch of these interviews so far. What I've heard is that the area of growth for Chenery is staff culture. And it sounds like what the Chenery is looking for is they're looking for a leader who can come in, who can set a common mission and vision, can unite the teachers around sort of one idea or one mission for the school. And I think it sounds like we need a leader that can establish some new traditions as we welcome 4th grade students from 4 different schools, teachers from 4 different schools, all under one building. So to me, at its core, like what is required of this role, it's a culture building role.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Mariola Magovcic. I have 2 kids. One is currently in 6th grade and one is currently in 3rd grade, so we'll be in Chenery next year.
Awesome.
This kind of, I think, dovetails a little bit on your question, but I was curious about how you envision the culture of Chenery as an upper elementary school, and more specifically, how you think about discipline in this age group, and if you have any specific examples of what you think works and doesn't work, and what you would like to see happen in the school if you were principal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So a couple pieces. I'll talk culture and climate of a school more broadly, and then I'll go into the discipline piece. So in terms of culture and climate in the school, kind of building off my last answer, there really are 3 pieces that you need to be thinking about, in my opinion, from the principal lens. So one, it's establishing that common mission and vision that is for teachers and faculty, but also for students as well. What is the common academic experience that they're going to get here at Chenery? The second piece of it is sort of an operational piece. So as the principal, you're responsible for setting the master schedule. I'm bringing in 4th grade teachers from 4 different schools. There needs to be space in the schedule for those 4th grade teachers to collaborate. Otherwise, everyone's going to be having a different experience, and that's not what we want. We need to have a consistent, strong experience across the grade level. And the third piece, I think, is really those traditions, and the traditions piece is important not only for that staff culture piece, but also for student culture, that there are academic markers of each year, that there are field trips, there are field days, there are things like that that get the students excited and are markers of that progression from 4 through 6. In terms of the second part to your question of discipline, to me, the most important thing with discipline is consistency. So it's not about giving out big consequences just a few times a year. It is about every single time an infraction is broken, there is a consistent consequence applied to that. And that's the way you get teacher and family support, and that's the way you get student buy-in too, when they see that you've established clear rules and expectations and you hold every student to those expectations each and every day. And so that's what I have done as an administrator. And even when you have students that might be upset about receiving a consequence for an infraction, they're not going to hold on to that grudge because they can see that you're being consistent about it with the other students in the school. And as long as kids can see you're consistent with it, they'll buy in.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Heather Rubeski. I have a 7th grader who went through 5th and 6th grade here at Chenery. I have an out-of-district 5th grader, and I have a 3rd grader who will be in the 1st, 4th grade class here next time. So
Awesome.
I'm covering a range.
Yep.
I have a question for you about some other areas where having a 7th grader who went through 5th and 6th grade here, I would love to see improvements or changes with my 3rd grader rising up to this new upper elementary school. And in particular, these are sort of non-academic areas that really impact a kid's ability to access the curriculum and do well and feel like they're doing well. Things like their executive functioning skills, typing skills, which we have no typing class here. I'm seeing, having a 7th grader now and the expectation jump at that age level, I'm seeing what could have been done to prepare those kids that I wish had been in place. And so I'd love to know, how do you support educators in bringing some more of that into the upper elementary school to prepare kids for middle school? And when we're lacking something, like how do you bring in programming or structure or supports for the students and the teachers to really make progress during 4th to 6th grade in some of those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's kind of a couple pieces in that question. I'll try to kind of tease them apart. So the first piece is something that I've alluded to in kind of a couple different answers, but I want to go deeper into it because I think at its core there is some teacher collaboration piece that is required. And so specifically, you're talking about typing skills. I think a lot of what happens in schools, from my experience, is teachers get siloed in their classrooms. They get siloed in their classrooms and they get siloed by grade levels. And what I have seen happen at the middle school and high school level is when there isn't that cross collaboration between grades, the grade jumps tend to be messy. And it tends to be not that smooth experience because the expectations of one teacher in the previous grade don't match up well with what the expectations of that teacher in the next grade are going to be. And so something we talk about in the schools that I've worked at is vertical alignment. And so vertical alignment, just plainly speaking, means that, for example, the material that you see in math in 4th grade ties in with 5th grade and 6th grade and then ties in with what is learned in 7th grade. And so I think there's a vertical alignment piece of your question in terms of ensuring smooth academic transitions for kids. If in 7th grade we're looking for students to be writing 5-paragraph essays, well, an underlying part of that skill is typing, right? And being able to use word processors and effectively work through that. The second part of your question, can you remind me kind of the second part of your question?
How would you bring in supports for teachers who haven't been doing this here, at least not consistently?
Yep.
And how would how would students be identified as needing more, or how would you get new aspects of this type of support implemented when we're sort of starting from zero or the very patchwork of some people are doing some things and others aren't?
Yeah.
And the executive functioning was the other piece of it. Typing is just a very concrete example of a skill.
Yeah. So I think kind of the first piece of that question is teacher development and growth angle. And so obviously as a school leader, you have the option to bring in outside professional development to get teachers trained on a new curriculum or new way of teaching. But a lot of times what I have found is that you have the knowledge, you have great things that are happening in the school already. And so you can leverage the teachers that you have in the building that are doing those great things that you might, as a school leader, come into the room and see and say, wow, that's amazing. I see what you're doing in this 4th grade class. That's something I want to have consistently across the whole 4th grade, and invite that teacher to lead some professional development for that whole grade level. And so oftentimes what I have seen is that you have those kind of flashes of great ideas, and it's up to you as a school leader to expand that and sort of make that work across the school. You obviously, as the leader, both have the power to be able to run those professional developments and elevate those ideas, and you can make that part of sort of your look-fors or your non-negotiable expectations for what the common experiences are at each of the grade levels.
Thank you.
Hi, I hope I'm not on camera. I'm Lindsay. I'm Lindsay Doherty. I have a fifth grader, a third grader, and a first grader. So we will be here for a bit, I guess. So my question kind of flows with Heather's a little bit, and I'm just curious as to what your experience is with MTSS, RTI, et cetera. From what we know currently, the RTI system was put in place in the elementary schools about 10, 12 years ago.
Okay.
But that has not trickled up yet to Chenery. So correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Geiser. So I guess my question is, we do, as you know, have 4 very different schools culturally, instructionally, et cetera, and they're all coming here. Now, the lack of alignment in terms of what has been taught instructionally is obviously going to have an impact, but also in terms of these kids who have been getting consistent support and being pulled out of the classroom, some of them from kindergarten all the way up through 4th grade, and then they come here and there's nothing, I think can be very much a struggle for a lot of kids. So I'm just curious as to how, you would go about solving that, or what your experience is with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for context, for anybody unfamiliar with the acronyms, MTSS, Multi-Tier Systems of Support, what we're really talking about here is we're talking about essentially how do we, 1, notice kids that are struggling, and 2, what do we do about it? And so when I worked at McDevitt Middle School in Waltham, I worked under a world-class principal there, Mr. Sabin. He had one of the best RTI programs I'd ever seen, and I'll tell you what that looked like and sort of what I've stolen from that. So the first piece was that RTI program was very data-driven, and so he had this incredible spreadsheet that pulled attendance data, discipline data, academic data, teacher comments, all sort of in one place. And what we did as an RTI team was every single week we took a look at that data, and we took a look to see, okay, who are the kids that we need to focus on, who is struggling, and why. And so we made those weekly meetings. We had one person from each grade level, we had counselors, we had leadership team members, and obviously, as you can imagine, every kid's a little different, so the plan and intervention plan looked a little bit different. But to me, as a principal, what really matters is that you create those structures to have that process happening on a weekly basis. You have a way of collecting data to make sure that you're not missing kids. Sometimes what I found in schools is that our sort of loudest or most visible students are the ones that get a lot of support, but you can have quiet students that sort of go under the radar. And so that's why having those data points, to me, is sort of a crucial part of it. And so I think, again, as a leader, you set the expectation that that intervention is happening weekly, that you're getting cross-collaboration between the students' various teachers and the counselors of the school, and ensuring that follow-up happens with the family. And so you can bring the family in to support with that student. So that's what I've seen in terms of RTI, MTSS. I've brought some of that to my current role at City on a Hill. I'd intend to do the same here.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Casey. I have a current 4th grader and a current 2nd grader, so we'll all be in the school soon. I, sort of wonder, thinking about the change from having 4th graders in an elementary school to then 4th graders in this school and how the structure will be. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on the structure of a day of a 4th grader being all in one class with just specialists and a 6th grader, or are they, and I know there's a lot of work being done, but I think the person who takes this position will ultimately need to make the decision about how it goes and how you think that can run smoothly, and ideas that you may have about that.
Sure. Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and this kind of came up earlier talking with the teachers. So just so we're all on the same page. So essentially, we've got grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. All 3 are going to have different models. Exactly as you said, you're going to have kind of the self-contained model for 4th grade. You're going to have 2 teachers essentially switching off history and English, and then essentially a STEM teacher switching off, and then for 6th grade, be rotating around. So you've got 3 very different grades, 3 very different needs, all in one school. Couple of overarching principles that I would use to kind of make scheduling decisions. One, my first non-negotiable is recess. I know that might be a non-intuitive place to start, but I think when you're building a master schedule and you have students at the upper elementary level, every single day. They need unstructured play, outdoors, ideally in the sun. And so you can't build a schedule that doesn't have recess as a core part of the day. I think the second piece that I would really look for is how can I create a schedule that is going to allow my teachers on that grade level to collaborate. If I create a schedule that doesn't allow any of the fourth grade teachers to collaborate, A, they're not going to get to know each other. B, the experience across fourth grade is going to be wildly inconsistent. And so those are kind of the overarching principles that I would use to create it. And that way, from there, we have a base to work from. And I think anything more detailed, I'd have to look at the details.
My name is Garis Papayani. I have a third grader, so we'll be coming here pretty soon.
Great.
You have been working for the last 2 years at City on a Hill charter public school. That school gets pretty low rating from greatschools.org. What are specific measurables that you have been reviewing and you have been using at City on a Hill to help you get better test scores and to measure the student progress or college readiness improvement? That was my first question. And then the second question is, when budgets are a concern, one of the first things that schools start saving is the quality of food for children. What have you done in the past to ensure that students get quality food?
Okay, fair enough. So the first question was about academic progress. For those that don't know, the current school I've worked at for the past 3 years, City on a Hill, serves primarily students in Roxbury, in Boston. Many of the students that we serve have special education needs, are English language learners, are recent arrivals to the United States, and so certainly we do not have the world's best MCAS scores. I will absolutely give you that. I'll tell you what we do use in order to move students. So for us as a school, we do map testing. We do map testing for all of our 9th and 10th grade students. Next year, we're adding it for our 11th grade students. What map testing does is essentially it's an opportunity to measure where students are in the fall, winter, and spring in English, math, and science. And the great insight about MAP that you don't get the same thing from MCAS is you get growth data. You get how quickly students are growing. And for us as a school, and for me as a school leader, it's important to have a good understanding of where students are starting so that you know that they're making more than one grade level of progress in a year, particularly if they're coming in from behind grade level. And so map testing is kind of the core tool we use to measure our impact as a school and to make sure that all of our classes are progressing at the rate we want. The second part of your question was about lunch, correct? So I don't think I have a super specific example for you here. At least for us, what I have seen from school lunch over the last couple of years, obviously through the pandemic, all of a sudden meals were made free. When I was at McDevitt Middle School, we worked really hard to make sure that the students that were in school on a daily basis got their free meals, but also students that were learning from home. And so we actually packaged up food at the end of the week in big bags and would send students home with a week of food when we were in the hybrid learning where students were in school for 1 week and then at home for the next week. And so that was actually an initiative I was responsible for, was making sure all of our kids got food on the weeks that they were not at McDevitt.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Erin. I have a current 6th grader here at Chenery, and I have a 3rd grader who will be here next year. There's a lot of moving parts in this upcoming school year. So almost sort of like a 50,000-foot view. What experience or experiences do you have managing sort of this level of operational detail and transition? Just to give us a sense, to kind of take a quick step back.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple pieces of my experience are helpful for sort of this role right here. So the first piece is the current school I work at, to be frank, relatively high teacher turnover, especially through the pandemic. And so if there's one thing I know how to do, it is onboard teachers, get them used to a new school culture, get them acclimated to the school, introduce them to students and families, and get everybody aligned on a common mission and vision. And so in my current role as Chief Academic Officer, I'm responsible for a couple departments: our math department, our teaching fellows program, our college counselors, our data and systems coordinators. And so in each of those departments, I have seen, as a result of some of that work, much, much lower attrition year over year. And so I think certainly my current school environment has been incredibly instructive in onboarding new folks to a school and getting them comfortable. The sort of bigger picture operational piece, I've talked a lot about my time at McDevitt, which is a large middle school in Waltham. I think some of the similar challenges that exist there exist here. You've got a lot of different faculty members. You don't have a ton of opportunity for them to get to know each other, and oftentimes the school felt pretty anonymous. And so I think I would leverage both of those experiences to hopefully be effective in this role.
Good evening. My name's Matt Kraft, and I have 2 kids at Burbank, and my 4th grader will be joining you guys here at the Q next year. And my question is related to how you would approach efforts to support teachers' development in this new transitional phase of the school, particularly how you think about cycles of observation and feedback and what is realistic given the ratio of administrators to teachers in this context, which is very different than what you've experienced at City on a Hill.
Yeah, really thoughtful question. Thank you. So a couple things. I'll say the same thing that I said to the teachers as I said to y'all because I am on camera. So this is what I said to the teachers. I said to the teachers because they asked me something similar about kind of approach to observation. And I told them that truthfully, I don't sweat the small things. If the lesson plan isn't perfectly created, that's typically not something that is going to be a big issue for me. I care about the big things, and here's what I define as the big things when I do an observation of a teacher. Number one is that classroom is a safe and welcoming environment, that every student in there feels safe, feels comfortable, is ready to learn. In terms of the academic experience, what I'm looking for, to me, it's all about the cognitive load. And so in plain terms, who is doing the heavy lifting? Who is doing the hard work in the classroom? Is it the students? Are they the ones learning, working hard, engaged with the task? Or is it the teacher, pouring their heart out at the front and you've got a bunch of students sitting there, just kind of looking up? And so if you've got a safe and welcoming environment, if you've got students engaged with rigorous grade level tasks, to me, those are the 2 kind of core pieces of a great classroom. The third piece is just piece on access and making sure that all students, particularly students with IEPs, students with special education needs, are able to access that curriculum. And so to kind of answer the last part of your question, which is how do you move from essentially being able to do sort of more one-on-one work with teachers versus being able to move into a school like Chenery where you do have more teachers that you're sort of directly working with in charge of supervising. I think the first thing is you can't put it all on yourself. It can't be all about you. And so you have to leverage the other teachers you have in the building. You have to leverage your grade level leads. Those are all, you have to leverage I know we have curriculum directors, I believe, or curriculum coordinators at each school. All of those are pieces of coaching teachers to improve instruction. And so if you as the principal are trying to do everything all on your own, I think that is a recipe for disaster. I always try to lean on the other expertise that I have in the building to move teachers forward.
Thank you. So it sounds like you're going to have to make a lot of decisions. And you have, on behalf of a community of kids and their parents, and a staff that sounds like they need some direction.
Yep.
So when you think about making decisions, I'm curious about your calculus and how you may consider the variables of relationships, process, and results. Out of those 3, what traditionally is your starting point? And would that continue to be your starting point?
What were your 3 pieces there? I like that.
Relationships, process, and results.
Okay, I like it. All right, so decision making. I think a couple pieces here. So one, in terms of where do I start with relationships. The reason I start with relationships is that your authority as a school leader is not absolute. You are very limited by your position, and I often describe the principal as much more of a middle manager, truthfully, in a lot of ways. And so my authority as principal is limited, and a lot of my ability to make an impact at Chenery is the relationships that I have with families, with the parent council, with the educators, and with the students. If they are not bought into my leadership, then there's really nowhere to go from there, truthfully. That is the foundation. And that doesn't mean everybody has to agree with all the decisions that I make, but they have to know that my intentions are good and that I'm trying to move the school forward in a positive way. The other part to your question was just like specifically, you want like a specific example of maybe some decision making?
No, I wouldn't do that to you.
Oh, okay. I'll just finish with this. This is how I have found to make the best decisions. And so when you're trying to make good decisions, I think you need input that is representative of the people that that decision will impact. And so if I am trying to do a new cell phone policy at the Chenery, I'm going to need to talk to a couple kids. I'm going to need to talk to a teacher from each grade level. I'm going to need to talk to a couple parents. Doesn't mean I have to talk to every single one, but I got to talk to at least a couple. And when you announce a change to a policy like that, people need to know the why behind the change. And then you as a school leader need to be able to model and stick by that policy each and every day. That goes to the discipline and consistency piece. And so there are inevitable changes that I would have to roll out as the new principal here. And so communicating it clearly, enforcing it every single day, but it's all underlined under a good set of relationships with folks because they have to know the intentions are good for them to be bought in.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Hi, Heather again. I did not lead with my literacy question. I probably shocked some people who know me in the room. Grades 4 to 6 on literacy proficiency and education, particularly as you've heard, we're broken record here, coming from 4 different elementary schools that, by the way, have 4 different, very different MCAS ratings, if you're looking at MCAS, on what percentage of their student body is proficient in 3rd grade in reading. We're going to have a very highly variable group of 4th graders coming up. So I am wondering what your perspective is in general on what needs to be in place to ensure that 4th through 6th graders have what they need in that area. And also, if you have had any experience, either at Sedan Hill or in Waltham, with participating in literacy trainings or instruction or restructuring curriculum or anything like that.
I'll start big picture thoughts, and then I have a specific anecdote about my time at McDevitt and doing some literacy screeners there. So big picture, I am an unapologetic advocate for schools adopting curriculum that follows our understanding of the science of reading. Science of reading is not just phonics, but it is phonics, it is fluency, it is vocabulary, it is knowledge building, it is all of those pieces. And so I am somebody that is unapologetic about advocating for curriculums that are proven to work, that fall under our understanding of what the science of reading is. And so to the extent that we might have 4 different curriculums, to me, the right answer is the one that is best going to move kids forward and is aligned with our understanding of what the science of reading is. More specifically, my anecdote about McDevitt, one thing that we started doing at my time at McDevitt was we started doing literacy screeners for all students. We essentially would pull students out into the hallway. We would ask them to read a passage, and we would check and count the number of mistakes that they make as they went through it. It was one of many things that we did as part of sort of a broader MTSS RTI process in order to try to identify students that might be under the radar, that might be have undiagnosed dyslexia, or have undiagnosed learning challenges. And so those sort of universal screeners, to me, are sort of a crucial piece of making sure that you're not missing kids, that all kids are reading on grade level.
At City on a Hill, what is 1 or 2 things that you are proud to have brought that was successful and moved the school forward?
Yeah.
And then the other question is like, now you've met with a whole lot of people and you know a lot about Chenery. So what are some of the things that you think from day one or the first 100 days or from the beginning you'd be starting to do or you'd cause the school to stop doing? And or maybe one thing that you think that is great and you would continue doing?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so a couple pieces. So first thing, something from City on a Hill that I'm very proud of. It doesn't directly apply to this age range, but I'll talk about sort of the application of it. So at City on a Hill, we had a low rate of students that were completing college-level coursework at our high school. And so I partnered with Roxbury Community College to implement a dual enrollment program for all of our upperclassmen students. Dual enrollment essentially means that in high school, students are able to enroll in a college class. They're able to get credit for that college class and essentially get dual credit, both high school credit and college credit. Particularly important for our students to start on that path early to college. And so dual enrollment was something that actually launched just this past summer. We already have 20% of all of our upperclassmen enrolled in a course at Roxbury Community College. And for us, the big value add was not just that kids got the chance to take a college level course, but it also broadened our academic offerings. And so students are taking statistics, nutrition, intro to the music business, psychology, all sorts of courses we would not be able to offer at our school, just given our small size. And so I'm very proud of the work we did with dual enrollment. It's been really successful. Our students have a high pass rate there, and they're earning that college credit now. The application to Chenery, obviously we're not going to do a dual enrollment here at 4 through 6, but I think the key piece of that is that community partnerships are sort of a core piece of being an effective school leader, right? And that you have so many, especially in the greater Boston area, there are so many nonprofits, there are so many folks doing amazing work that you as a school leader don't have to do everything yourself. You can partner with other folks and bring them into the school, whether it's the YMCA, whether it's the Rural Land Foundation, whatever it might be, there are lots of opportunities for partnerships that the principal can help facilitate. And so to me, that was sort of my learning and the applicability to here at Chenery. The second part to your question, remind me again what you asked.
What is something that you want to start doing?
Oh, start doing, right.
What do you want the school to stop doing? And what do you think that the school should just absolutely continue doing?
Sure, good question. So in terms of start doing, I know that one thing that hasn't happened yet is we haven't had the opportunity to get all of the fourth grade teachers together. We haven't had the opportunity to get them aligned on sort of what the mission and vision of fourth grade at Chenery is going to look like. And that is, to me, probably the core first 100-day challenge of the next school leader here. 5th and 6th grade teachers, for the most part, they have been here. The priority to me is those 4th grade teachers, to get them gelling well together, to get them working effectively, and to make sure that the 4th grade experience is consistent across classrooms. To me, I can't think of a more pressing issue in the first 100 days. I think the other thing, this is generic, but it is true, is you got to get to know folks. Like the question I answered earlier, whenever you're making change, you hopefully are making that change with some sort of foundation of relationships. So the parents need to know me. This is my first opportunity here. Hopefully I'm doing well. The parents need to know me. I need to have the school board know me. I need buy-in from the superintendent's office, and I need buy-in from the students as well. And so to me, building those relationships is going to be key if I'm going to be here long-term as the principal and be able to actually make those changes and make them stick.
I'm going to have this be our last question, because then I'll give Michael maybe like 4 minutes or so at the very end.
Cool.
It's probably a horrible question, but I have a current 5th grader and a going to be 4th grader next year.
Awesome.
Cara. But I guess my question is for, as far as teachers. I'm an educator myself, and right now is a trying time for teachers. They're going to be going through a lot of changes. There's a lot of pilot programs going on in the system. IM Math, Foundations, Words Their Way, the Science of Reading controversy. What would be a realistic timeline for you as far as getting all the teachers aligned? Because, like I said, there's a lot of change, and just for their health and well-being, like what would be your ideal timeline?
Sure. So I think there's kind of a couple pieces to that. So in terms of getting the teachers aligned, I think there are some things that you can do right away, and there are some things that I think are truthfully a multi-year project. So the things that you can get aligned right away within the first couple weeks of school is, how do we as a community work together? What are the expectations of staff culture, how we interact with each other, how we collaborate to support students, how we speak and work with families? All of those things to me are first couple weeks of school. The bigger questions of, if we're going to do a big curriculum fight, listen, that's a multi-year project, truthfully, right? Because anytime you're implementing a new curriculum, first off, you just need a couple years to get teachers to actually understand the full scope of that curriculum and the changes that are involved with it. And what I have seen in previous schools is that there is a tendency to ping pong to lots of different ideas too quickly. And if at the Chenery, at some point in my leadership, we are implementing new curriculum, well, that is a minimum 5-year project, truthfully, just in terms of the amount of investment that you as a leader need to provide to your teachers in terms of professional development, having them adapt the curriculum to make it work for them and their own teaching style. So I think all of that, that's multi-year to me.
Michael, thank you for those questions. I want to give you maybe the last 3 or 4 minutes just to, maybe you want to ask parents questions, maybe they have things they want to tell you, or anything you want to say at the end.
Sure, absolutely. So would just love, I'll keep it broad, would love to hear changes that y'all are looking to see at the Chenery over the next couple of years. Heavy.
Well, that hand went up quickly. Hold on a second.
For me, just watching my 5th grader here this year, this is not an upper elementary school. And I think the amount of work and transition for both students and staff was wildly kind of underrated. And I think the ball was very much dropped because I think this has somewhat been an afterthought. I think the focus was getting 7 through 12 up and running, and now it's kind of here. Barbara O'Brien, who's the interim this year, has done a great job of trying to change things on the fly.
Yeah.
But from what I see, there's, even at the 5th grade level, there is a vast difference between the teams and how they are run and what the expectations are. Particularly around developmentally appropriate practices. You mentioned recess, which I know a lot of us are very interested in the recess piece. And that's something that I think, morning meetings, responsive classroom, I know these are all things that are kind of in the works for next year, but there are a lot of things that are very truly lacking, and this is not at all an upper elementary school, other than in name right now. It is still very much a middle school, and I think I have heard rumblings from different staff members that there is a lot of pushback. There are people who don't want to be in an upper elementary school. And so I think, you mentioned a lot about 4th grade, but I think there are going to be challenges beyond that. And so I just think it's a very, very big shift in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think all of us would really like it to be an upper elementary.
Yeah. So you think that is both a mindset challenge and just logistics to the day and approach to teaching and learning? Like, it's all the pieces?
It's D, all of the above.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
Having seen my now 7th grader go through 5th and 6th here, there are a couple things that stand out. One is that you come from a very small school, well, relatively small school.
Yeah.
Where there's a real sense of community, both among the students, because they've gone through multiple grade levels, a lot of them. They are together, getting mixed up from, year after year. They know all the teachers, they know all the staff, they know their secretary, their school nurse. The parents know each other. And then when we came to Chenery, there was no community. I mean, the parents don't know each other. Suddenly, you have very little, comparatively, communication from the school, and it feels enormous. And so one of the real questions I have is how, particularly with the 4th graders, because it will transition as they get older, right? They need to learn some of these skills of more teachers, more classrooms, transitioning, right?
Yep.
In 4th grade, how are we going to build this school so that they feel like they are part of a community, whether it's pods, teaching teams, groups that all have gym and art together, whatever it is, because these kids as fifth graders already felt lost coming in, how with the kids a year younger, I think that's a real concern of mine, is how are the kids going to feel like they're part of a community? How are the parents going to be able to be as engaged or more engaged than they have?
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to answer that question? There you go.
Answer or ask?
Answer. Okay, I'll change.
I got it. No. Sit down, I got it. No, sort of to speak to her question too, I know obviously the focus is on the younger guys and gals. My daughter was here in 5th grade, and now she's here in 6th grade. She came to Chenery Middle School, and now she goes to Chenery Upper Elementary. So I feel like there's going to be this.
Yep.
She got a demotion. She was very upset about it. But there is that sort of higher level, and I'm sure, like people said before, like the teachers too, there might be this kind of pushback. So I think there is a challenge ahead, but I feel like you've shared a lot of great things and a lot of great experience, but I think that community piece, I think that's been in most everyone's sort of the back of everyone's questions.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge. And I know there's no clear answer,
Yeah.
but just hearing from us as parents, I feel like that's been sort of a steady stream, both with teachers and students. So I just want to reiterate that.
Thank you. I'll give you a chance to respond to that, and then we'll finish up.
No. No, I'll respond to the community piece. I mean, again, I think there's a couple things to it. Building community is a multi-year project. I think as the principal, you are ultimately the person responsible for leading the charge, but again, you can't do it alone. And so even the comment earlier about the parents being, it sounds like, more involved at the elementary school than at Chenery, like those are sort of the levers that you have. I can tell folks turned out on very short notice just for this little meeting right here. So I can tell that there's a lot of dedicated parents. There's certainly a lot of dedicated teachers that I talked to earlier that are eager to make that change. And so as the school leader, you need to bring them in, give them guidance and give them a direction. But I have talked to probably 50 people at this point in the Belmont community, all who are invested in making Chenery and the community something more positive.
Michael, thank you so much for coming in tonight. It is my job to walk Michael to his last interview. So it is my pleasure to introduce the second candidate of the night, our second finalist, and this is Laura Smith. Laura is currently working in the role of elementary curriculum coordinator here at the Chenery, here in Belmont, a position she has held since September of the school year. Prior to Belmont, she worked as a literacy coach in the Cambridge Public Schools, a position that was a district-wide in nature. She served in that capacity for 2 years. She also brings previous experience as a cultural proficiency facilitator from 2015 to 21 at the Cambridge Street Upper School, an assistant principal from 2009 to 15 at the Kennedy Middle School, and nearly a decade as a classroom teacher of English 2001 to 2009 at Cambridge Ringe and Latin School. She boasts a BA in English Literature from UMass at Boston, an MEd degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where she was honored as a James Bryant Conant Fellow, and is currently pursuing her doctorate degree at the University of South Carolina in Curricular Studies and Educational Leadership. Once again, we're thrilled to have such a qualified and capable professional as a finalist for this important position. So Laura, I'm going to ask you to just come to the microphone. It doesn't actually, it's just so that the camera can pick us up. And I'm going to ask you to do just a couple minutes introduction of yourself. We'll have a few questions for you, and at the end, I'll give you maybe 5 minutes to either ask the previous candidate, ask some questions of the parents, or you can, whatever closing you want. Sound good? And I will also pass around the microphone. When we do so, people will introduce themselves, what age their children are, so you have a little bit of a sense of it. Okay? All right, all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all. I'm thrilled to be here this evening to talk to you all about my candidacy. I bring with me 24 years of educational experience. About a third of that, you heard, was classroom experience. About a third of that was administrative as an assistant principal. And about a third of that, the last third, was as a literacy coach focused on professional development and thinking about adult learning in schools. So that sort of composition of career leads me to my belief about schools, which is that they should be a place where both students and adults are learning and growing and excited about those opportunities every day. A little bit about me personally. I'm a public school graduate myself. I grew up in Watertown. Don't hold it against me. My mother was a teacher and a principal. My husband was a teacher and is a principal. He's the principal of Cambridge Fringe and Latin. He's done that for 13 years, and I can tell you that exactly because my son will be 13 on Monday, and it's been since he was 3 weeks old. That is important, an important detail because it means that I know what the life of a principal is and what the role of a principal is. And I'm excited to take on this challenge and to do it with excitement and joy. So the other thing about my family is we are an interracial family. My husband is Black. My 2 boys, who are 13 and 9, are biracial. And that sort of focuses all of my work with an equity perspective, because I think about the ways that they get to show up to school and have their experience mirrored back to them, or not. And so, I think about, there's a lot of our students who have that experience. So that sort of centers who I am as I come to you today. So I'm excited to hear from you and hear your questions and what you're thinking about.
All right, I will start off with the first question, and then we'll give it to the parents. The first question is, what role do you see music and the arts playing in the overall experience for students at Chenery and in their transition and growth through grades 4 through 6?
Thank you. So I told you I have 2 children. My oldest, when I ask him what his favorite class is, every day he says orchestra. And, it's that, I think, changes over time, but it's so central to who he is as a person and what he's developing. It's important to his self-confidence. He's asked for lessons, over the summer and on the weekends. And so, I think that the arts and music and developing that level of intelligence is really foundational and important for kids to have a creative outlet. So I'm fully supportive of the arts. I hear there's a great art show that I should check out. It also is a place where students, who are not naturally academically successful sometimes thrive. So just having the opportunity to have courses that, span a gamut of topics and subjects is really important, so that students have an opportunity to try out all sorts of different things and find out what they're good at, especially in grades 4, 5, and 6.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Caroline Beasley, and I have a daughter in 4th grade currently. My question is about, what do you think are the greatest needs of this age group, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders? And how do you think these needs are best met in an upper elementary school model? And given what you know about Chenery currently, what are the ways in which these needs are currently being met? And where do you think there are areas for growth?
Okay, you might need to help me out.
That's okay. I'll help you.
Okay. I'll start with grades 4, 5, and 6 and the students themselves and what they need. So upper elementary, I think, is such an exciting, fun time. I think that we should have a track team because they don't walk anywhere, they run, and so getting everyone to slow down is a challenge. But in terms of development, these are children who are developing such a strong sense of fairness. And so it's really important in terms of thinking about curriculum to harness that and think about the ways in which they can help create a classroom constitution, contribute to the rules of the school, be on peer mediators or be on student council, those sorts of things. They are wanting to be independent, but then also wanting to snuggle, oftentimes in the same day. And so that push and pull we see all the way through 4th, 5th, and 6th, even though it's, sometimes they're this big and wanting to snuggle, right, as 6th graders. So I think, it's an essential phase of development, and whoever conceived of the 4, 5, 6 together got it right. It's the right mix of students to be together, and it's an exciting time. So what we're doing well right now, I can tell you today we had an amazing day. Does anyone have students here already? Did you hear about it? Grade 5 today had, it was the 1,000th day of school, and students rotated through stations through every team. So every student got to visit a different team of teachers, and they met all of the teachers, and every teacher had a different activity for the 100th day of school. So they did 100 exercises. That was tough. I was sweating by 8:30 this morning. They did a challenge where they had to construct something. They had math games. They just had, something new and exciting and fun. They had to complete 100-piece puzzles. So it was all day long of fun and celebrating their 1,000th day, because if you're in 5th grade, you reach your 1,000th day of school. And it was all decorated and adorable and wonderful. And so, those are things that we are doing well. And the teachers, dress up in costumes for Idiom Day and the parade through the school. And so it is a joyful place, and teachers are highly dedicated. In terms of, what we will need to do going forward, this has been a place where 5th grade was the youngest, and, people were thinking about what's next. And I hear a little bit about that, what's next, how are we getting them ready for middle school? And I think that we need to shift that a little bit and think about how are we having fun learning every day? How are we really focusing on the things that we know are important to younger students? So, my 9-year-old, I ask every day, how was your day? He says, good. I say, what made it good? And he said, well, at recess, I, scored in soccer, and I got to see my friends. And I always say, did you learn anything? Well, it takes a while to get at that thing. And he is, of course, learning and growing. But the most essential parts of his day are, how are his friendships growing? Was it fair? That there's never a referee at soccer, and it's never fair. And, how much time at recess, and did they eat outside? Did they eat inside? All of those kinds of things. So, so we, the lucky we're bringing 4th grade teachers up who are experts in that already. And I'm excited about that. I think that it's going to be great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Mariola, and I have a current 6th grader and a 3rd grader who will be here next year. So you answered some parts of this question already, but I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about how you envision the culture of Chenery changing as an upper elementary school, and particularly in relation to discipline as it is now, kind of what you're seeing in the school and what you would change, but generally the culture as a whole.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been really lucky to be part of culture days, creating days that we have planned here at Chenery for teachers. So those have been, getting together the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teachers together and to start planning some of the work that will affect students. And that's what I think the heart of your question is. Yeah. So at these days, what has come up and what is, going to make this place a place that is really a joyful learning environment focused on academics where people feel successful is going to be really defining PBIS, it's called, where everyone knows what the expectations are in every place, right? So really clearly defining whether we keep our motto, which currently is responsible, respectful, ready to learn everybody, every day, what that means, and what does that mean when you are lining up to enter the building? What does that mean when you're walking through the hallways and other people are learning? What does that mean in the cafeteria, right? And so teaching students and having student input on all of those places and what they, what modeling for them, what that means in all of the places. So proactively establishing what the expectations are so that they have the best possible chance to be successful. And then in terms of discipline, like what happens when people don't make the right choices and follow the rules. I always say to teachers that discipline corrective behavior is quiet and praise is public, right? So it's really important to me that teachers think about the dignity of a child, that they are learning, that this is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and that they are able to maintain that dignity, and that they, get what they need to improve behavior, whatever that may look like. But that also those things are clearly laid out so that students can meet those expectations. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay.
Hi, I have two kids. The older one is an 8th grader. The younger one is a 4th grader who will be joining the Q community next year.
Yes.
So my question actually has two parts. The first part is that through a student's eye, how would you picture yourself as a principal?
Yeah.
And the second part of my question is that through a teacher's eye, your colleagues, how would you picture yourself as the principal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. That's really thoughtful way to think about it. So I have students visit me all day long. My office is in the 5th grade wing, so students come in and check in and say hello all day now. And part of that is because we had this great initiative of Get Caught Reading, where it was like a contest where every single adult in the building had tickets that they could hand out to students during 1 week where they got caught reading anytime they had a book. And it was to generate excitement about reading and good reading habits and things like that. But I was also the prize lady, so I had all the prizes and got to announce this big initiative and fun. So now they all know who I am, and they also know me from recess and lunch and all of those things. So I think as through the eyes of a child, I am somebody, they know my name, they know I'm approachable, they tell me about their day, I help them with their friends. I think that I'm somebody who's around and visible and part of their day. And for teachers, I introduced myself to teachers this year as somebody who's spent the last third of their career as a teacher coach. So really my, whole day was designed around the needs of others. And so, I think of myself as a servant leader in terms of thinking about, what do people need to do their job really well? And so that's the approach that I take with teachers. So coaching them, thinking about thought partnering with them about problems that they need solved, taking something off their plate if I can do that for them, but not taking the thing off that they need to learn how to do for themselves. So that sort of careful balance. And so I think, when teachers see me, I hope they see somebody who's empowering them to be a better educator. And I began this, conversation by saying I really do think that schools need to be places where teachers learn too. And so I hope that that's part of the how they view what I'm bringing, is that, this is a place where if teachers continue to learn and grow, learn about the students in front of them, learn about the best way to access and engage them, that they will feel good and excited about their jobs, because it's exciting to learn new things.
Hi, my name is Matt Kraft, and I have two kids in elementary school here, one who will be a rising 5th grader and join the Q. You've had a lot of really rich and varied experience, and I'm curious to hear more about how you have grown as an educator in those roles. What did you start out doing as assistant principal that now you're reflecting on and think, I've learned to do that better or differently? How do you approach instructional coaching in ways that have grown as you've learned through your experience on the job?
Yeah. Such a thoughtful question. I'm in this doctoral program now where I'm constantly thinking about growing and learning and research and what can I learn and do better. there's so many things that I know now that I wish I knew when I was a teacher. And like, I think that's true every stage of my career that I've gone to, right? So when I first stepped out of the classroom as an administrator, I actually went back and taught again, because I felt like I had this new knowledge and perspective, and I wanted to go back and do it again and like just try again and like use that new knowledge. So I think, when I think now, like I want to think more recently about like the role of coaching. When I started coaching, I was not good at it, I don't think. Like, I think that, like, you think you can do something because you've done this other thing, right? And so it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because teachers are good, right? And so to try to help somebody get better at what they're doing, you have to really earn their trust and have them believe in you in order to say, like, open up their practice and make you, like, want to work together. And it was... there was so much about navigating those relationships that I had to learn, right? And so over time, I think I've learned that will help me in the role of principal, like to ask more questions, to really stay curious about, what is important to the person sitting in front of me, to find out what support looks like to them, not what I think it is, but what it looks like to them. And I think that's true, like when you're working with parents, when you're working with students, like really being curious about what somebody else needs rather than what I think they need. And that, that came slowly, and that comes over time, that comes with age, right? So, I imagine and hope that I'll continue to learn and grow, and I think reflecting and having thought partners is part of that process. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, this is sort of not connected, but it is. I wasn't sure that I heard it correctly the first time, that you're currently in a doctoral program?
Yes.
Okay, so then
5 more months.
Okay, my question was, how are you going to balance the two? Because
No, I'm doing my research now, and I defend June 26th. Write it on the calendar. Send me good vibes. Yeah, it's almost done. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Heather. I have a 7th grader who went through 5th and 6th grade here, an out-of-district student, and a 3rd grader who will be up here next year. And I love that you want the children to enjoy school and have those fun times, but I'm also very aware of the academic expectations that are coming at these kids as they hit 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and the shock to the system it can be for them when they haven't been prepared in all the ways that they need to be. So my question to you is, what can we do in the upper elementary model with the 4th, 5th, 6th grade in terms of the skills that they need other than the straight academics, the executive functioning skills, the literal typing skills, things like that right now we don't have programs for. We don't have an executive functioning model that all the teachers in 4th through 6th are supposed to be reinforcing with the kids. We don't have any typing programs for the children in school. And you get to 7th grade and you are expected to be able to run. And some of the kids take to it naturally, and others it's a real struggle. So my question is, what can we do? And you've been here, so you've seen it now for the first half of this year. What would you try to come in and do differently to better prepare the kids without taking the fun out of their day?
No, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. No. Yeah, I always ask the tough ones, Heather. So I would say that, part of the progression from 4 through 6 is building independence, right? Building independent skills. And so I think that you're right. You named the things, the executive function skills of learning how to keep yourself organized, learning how to, prioritize tasks and think about like projects and long-term thinking and those kinds of things. And, some of that is here that they'll get over time. And some of that, I think you're right, like we need to continue to work and build that into curriculum and think about how, putting in project-based learning might support some of the development of those skills. In terms of typing, I was shocked the day that I walked into 5th grade and people were typing an essay. They were all typing looking down because, my kids go to school in Cambridge in 3rd grade. They start, with the typing club, and it's a, but typing club is free, I think, and I think that they do it in the library here. So that would be an important thing to hold on to if they I would have to find out more about it, but I definitely think that typing is one of those things. The place that I see it fitting in is we will have WIN classes in the schedule going forward, and that's a place where students can start to put typing, as one of those skills. It's one of those soft skills, but certainly something that they could do in the times where they have either WIN or extended learning or some downtime in their day, and just really making teachers aware that that's something that is missing, that they need to build up to, and increasing that stamina over time. I don't think there's an easy answer there, but I definitely think you're raising some good points that we want to hold on to. Get that override. Yes.
Given the critical juncture of the identity of this school, sort of a new identity within one that already exists, what do you think are the greatest benefits of being an internal candidate?
I think that it's been really helpful to be part of thinking, constructing the schedule, thinking of the instructional models that will best suit students, knowing the players, knowing the people, thinking about who would team well together, thinking about, these culture building days and the work and laying out projects and plans and having a vision for what, could be now, right? And I feel like every day counts in terms of getting ahead of the game and preparing a school for 2/3 being new next year, because 3rd and 4th grade will come and only 5th grade will know the ropes. So I think that those are some real concrete things that are to my advantage. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I have a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader. I was just wondering, I know you have a background in literacy, which is excellent, but I was just curious about your experience and thoughts about some kind of intervention support system here, whether we're calling it RTI or MTSS, whatever it may be called, and how you would go about kind of forming some kind of system and getting it off the ground for kids and teachers.
So we are using iReady as our screening process here at Chenery. I have done a lot of work with our literacy team here, and I know our math team is following the same process in terms of using that as the first universal screener, and then following that up with diagnostic testing that will give you information about the reason why somebody is below grade level. So that has been, we used that for the first phase in the fall, and then we're currently doing the winter, so we'll soon have growth data, right, to take a look at. From that information, we used those scores to provide, to determine who needed intervention services, whether, for literacy it was, do they need decoding and therefore a small group pull out a few times a week, or do they need comprehension that they could get push-in services within the classroom, right? So that first round, teachers set goals with students, and they talked about the goals with students. And I was just talking with a teacher yesterday about how that made such a huge difference in some of the students' growth, and they're really proud of their growth. And having those conversations and having transparency around that has made a huge difference for their practice, the teacher was saying. So that felt really good. And I know math has followed the similar process. So not all of the data is in, so we'll see what happens, but that's been the process so far. I would say what needs improvement about that is that right now with the schedule being a 6-day cycle, they only can have intervention, certain days out of that schedule, and so we're looking forward to being able to offer more intervention in the schedule going forward.
So after you do iReady and you identified preliminarily some kids,
Mhm.
what are the follow-up?
Diagnostics?
Yes.
Oh gosh, you're gonna ask me. SRI is no, I don't think I can tell you off the top of my head. I have to have a minute to look at
it's
them.
okay. It's just
It's
my own
phonics
curiosity.
screeners.
It's
Yeah, it's phonics screeners, and I would have to look
It's fine.
because I'm gonna
All good.
flub it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
I think thinking about those along those lines and how my name's Casey and I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader, so kids will be in the school both soon. Thinking about along those lines and sort of how special education and RTI services work, and what your thoughts are on how you pair a special educator or an RTI interventionalist with a particular student. And with the different schedules that will be happening in 4, 5, 6, how you think that will compound it or not. I guess for an example, at one elementary school, they were pairing it based on grade, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that, because I'm not sure if they always match the best special educator with the student if you're only doing it based on grade.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So,
So like this, so they had one
Special
special
ed,
educator who
just did
serviced
4th
fifth grade.
So it doesn't matter what your needs were, even if that person wasn't
Oh.
certified in something, or
I
like whether they
see.
were certified. And so I guess what my question
Oh.
is, is how will you do that across? How do you think about that? And maybe the thought is that it does work best to do it by grade, and I'd like to understand the rationale.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't work best, how you do that with this sort of very different schedule based on the grade.
okay. I mean, that's an area that we would work with special education from the district level and think about, who's available and what special certifications they have. I mean, I think that in the various districts that I've worked at, we have tried to, and it makes sense for adults to work in their area of strength wherever possible. So somebody who's certified in Wilson should be teaching reading, right? And things like that. Yeah, I mean, that I think wherever possible, we try to do that. That said, there are, obviously always restrictions given, staffing and budgeting and things like that. But I think that best practice is always to make sure that students, have what they need as outlined in their IEP. Yeah.
It's Heather, when you need her, she always has a question. Yeah. If there are, I'll do a little bit more wait time. I'm not very.
Actually, I do have one question.
Perfect.
Yeah,
There you go.
QRI, by
Sorry.
the way,
People
QRI, not SRI.
QRI. That makes more sense.
Oh my God.
that makes
It's
a lot more
right
sense.
on the tip of my tongue.
I do have a question, which is, you've been out of the classroom for a while, obviously. You've had various roles. What is kind of the driving force behind you deciding that you don't want to be coaching or curriculum director any longer and would like to become the principal here?
Yeah. I am excited about the possibility here. There's a few reasons. One is, I came here and this building needs stability. There's been a lot of turnover in leadership, and I realized pretty quickly that I could, my leadership skill set matches the needs here, and I've met some of the staff, and I'm poised to really take this to the next level. So that's really part of it. I think the principal as an instructional leader doesn't have to be that far removed from classrooms. I'm in classrooms every day, and I'm hoping that continues. So, I don't see that as, something that will take me too far away from that work, and especially with instructional leadership. If it did, I would be really sad, but I don't think that it has to be. I think that, a really good principal has an instructional leadership team and is talking with teachers every day about their practice and, really can stay connected on that level.
I really appreciated hearing about your own family's identity. And I'd love to hear you talk about family engagement, particularly culturally responsive family engagement. We love living in Belmont, and one of the things that we've come to really appreciate is the cultural diversity, and we'd love to see it be celebrated and really surfaced as a strength. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how to do that at this age group.
I have been part of schools where we have established listening conferences as the first experience that parents have with teachers, right? So really establishing the idea that parents are the experts on your children and you're the first teachers, right? And that teacher's job at that first meeting should be to listen. And I think that that's really necessary to undo some of the learning that people have about schools as white dominant spaces, right? So creating and establishing a listening conference is good for everybody. It's good for all of us to be able to say to a teacher, you know, here's what happens with him. He's a little quirky. He needs, 3 reminders. You need to tap him on the shoulder. This is my son. You need to tap him on the shoulder. He's on Planet Max until you say, like, hey, come on back down, right? So those, that establishment of like a change in power dynamics is really important as a way to engage families. I mean, I think that connections and relationships have to happen, and we have to think about them differently in terms of, teachers reaching out for positive news, for communicating. Teachers do a really good job here of sending weekly newsletters that share the news and show pictures of what's happening in the classroom, and those kinds of things are really important in terms of showing families what's going on and giving them a way to offer what they are doing outside and bring it in. And I think that when you ask people, to come in and share their expertise, they want to come. They will come, right? Inviting families in for, we had folk tales is one of the first units that fifth graders do, and 5th graders wrote cautionary tales, and parents all came in and gave their feedback to the students as audience members. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for everyone to bring in their families and have, an opportunity post-COVID, right? We get to come in again and to interact positively and to walk around and meet other children. And those are, as parents, we know those are the ways that we have opportunities to meet one another, to meet, different friends, different families. And I think those informal opportunities are really important to the community. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have this be the last question, and then we'll give you a few minutes at the end.
Okay.
You've been here now for 1 year, and you're looking to become the principal. What is the first thing that you would want to change as the principal of the school?
What's the first thing I would want to change? I don't know if it's like a thing so much. Well, signage. I'll tell you that. It's signage. Everyone gets lost when they come here and nobody knows where to go. So I feel like that's one tangible thing that I would want to change. So that when people come in, they would know exactly where to go and get there, be able to get there easily. But also, and I think that communicates something about like, we're a welcoming space and we want you to feel welcome, and those kinds of things, right? But really, it's that I want people to feel joy when they come into the space. I want them to feel like this is a place where kids are, engaged, where they're curious, and that, that they want to learn. And I think that that is the most important focus for me in terms of, like, I want the joy in school.
You don't think that that's actually happening now?
I think it's happening in pockets, and I think we need more of it. Mm-hmm.
Laura, I want to give you just the last few minutes to either ask a question or make any final statements, and then we'll let you finish.
Okay, so I think that what I want to leave you with, I think, is that, I hope that I have conveyed to you my core values, which are, I'm a person of integrity, and I really believe in academic excellence. I think I've said joy a whole bunch of times tonight. Social justice as something that's really important for these kids as they develop their sense of fairness. Those are things that shape, my approach to education and to leadership. I am curious to hear from you what you would want from a principal that's interacting with your students every day.
Hi, my name is Patricia Nowakowski. I have one 6th grader and one 4th grader who would be coming in. And my 6th grader first complaint is that the adults that she's interacting with are not respectful.
Respectful.
Yes. And that's your first core value of the school. And she multiple times said she was yelled at when she was behaving well. Everybody got yelled at, that she was held from recess multiple times. And it was happening last year. It got a little better this year, but it's still happening. And she is being held from using a bathroom. She is being held from sitting next to her friend. So she doesn't feel like she's respected. So I think that would be my first thing to change and think about while you're there. And a second thing that I would like to see change is, I'm answering your question, is you said the communication with parents. And the weekly newsletters are wonderful, and I truly appreciate it because we didn't have it a year ago. And this year's, it's a huge improvement. But meeting one-on-one with teachers, it's not there. We used to have 2 conferences back in elementary school. And first one was, as you said, more of the listening. And the second one was more of the feedback. This year, I expected the exact same thing. So on my first conference, I talked a lot. And they said, okay, and when do we meet next? And that was it. We're not meeting anymore. So I haven't learned anything. And I won't have that opportunity because we only have 1 conference a year. And it was beginning of the year, and couple of the teachers, and I met with 4, said, well, she hasn't spoken class yet, so I don't know. So I learned absolutely nothing. And also, those conferences were over Zoom. And we had 20 minutes to talk to 4 people that were split into 2 different meeting rooms. So I waited for 5 minutes to get into the first room, which gave me 5 minutes for 2 people. And I waited 7 minutes to talk to the remaining 2 people, which gave me 2 minutes per person. So that communication is still missing.
I want to say to you, first of all, to your daughter, I'm sorry that has happened to her. I said earlier that praise is public and discipline is quiet, and I believe that. And so, I do intend to make that message really clearly known. I think it's really important. Yeah, thank you for sharing your experience. Yeah.
One thing that I get a little nervous about is I don't see a lack of elementary experience on your resume. The change that I hope for is that this truly becomes an elementary school. I teach in a school that goes to 5th grade, and when I had my 5th graders conference here, she didn't know anybody in her class, and I said, well, what are you doing to build a culture in your classroom? And they really didn't have an answer. So, at my school, we do a responsive classroom. I know that you're, going to begin it, but that's my hope, is that it really does change. So, maybe going to the elementary schools and visiting and just seeing what the culture is in those schools will help you. But, when you go into a classroom, I hope there's a rug, for morning meeting. I hope that there's pictures on the wall. I hope that, I really do want this school to be more of an elementary school because they're still so young and they have the rest of their lives to, be old. So.
Yes. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to take that?
There we go.
So you asked us what we would look for in a principal. I think you nailed it with just being present and being in the classrooms and making your face in our faces, because I think that makes for just a better environment. We had at the elementary school, we had a principal who was constantly out there at pickup and drop off, constantly being seen, and it felt like she was truly invested in the school. So I think just the idea of being present and your whole idea of joy. You did say it a lot, but that's what's really lacking.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Let you finish.
Well, I think what I want to say to you as parents is we can't do it alone. That it's a partnership. School and parents need to work together to make wonderful things happen. And so that part is, I really look forward to collaborating because this community can do great things. That's what I've seen so far. And I think that together we can create a nurturing environment that is focused on academic excellence and joy where every child thrives. So thank you so much for your time. And that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
So you have two sheets, a green one for Laura and an orange one for Michael. And so if you fill those out, just leave them on the table in the two piles on your way out. I'm going to do this on camera. For those who are streaming this online or who are watching online, we will have, as we send out the video, we will also send an online feedback form. And that'll be open through this Sunday at midnight. And then we will incorporate all the live data that we got here from, as well as the online forum, and we'll give that to Dr. Geiser on Monday. So thank you all there's a lot of things tugging at you at this time of the year in these evenings, and the fact that you would take the time to actually spend here, especially for an hour and a half, is really meaningful. So thank you on behalf of the candidates, and thank you on behalf of the school administration for just giving us the time, the attention, and the care, and for being involved. So thank you.